Um, have you ever actually noticed what goes on inside your own head when you're just sitting quietly? Like
Yeah.
maybe you're waiting for a meeting to start or lying in bed trying to fall asleep.
Oh, yeah, the classic 2 a.m. brain activity.
Exactly. Do you ever feel like your mind is just this relentless, constant thinking machine?
Mm.
Because one minute you were replaying this slightly awkward conversation you had literally 5 years ago.
Right, the one you can't change.
Right. And then the very next minute, you're spitting out these elaborate, completely doomsday anxieties about a project at work that hasn't even launched yet.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. And if that exhaustingly familiar loop is something you deal with, I mean, you are definitely not alone.
It is arguably the most universal human experience. That constant mental chatter, that inability to just sit and be is something almost everyone wrestles with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's also something we rarely ever stop to question. We just kind of accept it as the default state of being alive.
And that default state is exactly what we are challenging today. Welcome to our latest deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore a detailed review and breakdown of a massively influential audiobook. We're talking about Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
It's a heavy one.
It really is.
Yeah.
We've gathered a great stack of source material, including this very comprehensive structured review of the audiobook. And our goal today is to distill this, what is it, a 7 to 8 hour spiritual and mindfulness guide?
Yeah, right around 8 hours.
Right, so we want to distill that into its absolute most powerful, actionable nuggets for you. We want to bypass the full runtime and get straight to the core of what makes this book so transformative and honestly so challenging.
Yeah, and to set the context right out of the gate here, this material isn't about finding some temporary mood boost. It's not about trying to force yourself to just think positive.
Right, no toxic positivity here.
Exactly. Tolle's work is fundamentally about understanding the actual mechanics of human consciousness. It's a deep exploration of why human beings are so incredibly prone to mental suffering and how we unconsciously construct the vast majority of that suffering ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's less of a typical self-help guide and much more of a complete psychological teardown of the human condition.
Well, and that teardown really starts with the central thesis of the book,
Right.
which I think completely shifts how you view your daily life. Because Tolle argues that most human suffering doesn't actually come from reality.
Right.
Like, it doesn't come from the physical situation happening right in front of you. He suggests that almost all of our psychological pain comes from living in the past or living in the future.
Which is where that thinking machine comes in.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
the mind is that constant thinking machine we mentioned. We generate all this mental noise, and as a result, we completely miss the peace that is available right now.
And to truly grasp that, we really have to deconstruct our typical perception of time. Because Tolle points out something that is structurally undeniable, but psychologically very difficult to accept.
Okay.
The past, materially speaking, does not exist anymore. It is merely a memory. It's literally just a neurological trace left in your mind.
It's gone.
It's completely gone. And the future, that doesn't exist yet either. It is purely imagination. It's a projection.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. That now this exact present fraction of a second you're experiencing as you listen to my voice right now is the only reality that actually exists. Everything else is essentially a phantom.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I hear that, and my immediate reaction is, well, a bit of skepticism.
Sure, that's natural.
Right, because if the future is just an illusion, how am I supposed to plan my week?
Yeah.
Or save for retirement? Or
Well-
manage my career? Like, am I just supposed to wander around with no foresight and completely ignore tomorrow?
And that is absolutely the most common friction point people hit with this philosophy. But Tolle makes a very crucial distinction here between what he calls clock time and psychological time.
Clock time and psychological time.
Right, so clock time is the practical application of time. It's making a grocery list, booking a flight, setting up a 401k. You use the concept of the future to function in the real world, but then you immediately return your attention to the present.
So it's just logistics.
Exactly. Psychological time, on the other hand, is when you tie your identity and your emotional well-being to those future events. It's not just saving for retirement. It's agonizing daily over whether you'll end up destitute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, clock time is useful. Psychological time is basically a breeding ground for anxiety.
Ah, okay. So making the grocery list is clock time, but agonizing over whether cooking that dinner will finally impress my in-laws is psychological time.
You nailed it. That's exactly it.
That makes a lot of sense. And the source material actually notes that when people actively shift their focus away from that psychological time and into the present moment, measurable things happen. Like stress reduces significantly, mental clarity improves, and baseline happiness actually increases.
Because you aren't fighting ghosts anymore.
Right. Instead of battling tomorrow's abstract imaginary problems, you are only dealing with what you can practically handle in this exact second.
Which brings us to the actual mechanism of how you do that. Because Tolle introduces a concept that is foundational to this entire deep dive, and it's this: you are not your mind.
Yeah.
You are the observer of your mind.
Okay, when I first read that in the source review, I literally had to stop and reread it.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not my mind, what am I? The idea that my thoughts aren't me feels totally counterintuitive.
It really does.
Yeah.
So let's look at a specific relatable example from the text to illustrate this observer effect. Imagine you have the thought, I am not successful.
Oof. Yeah, that's a heavy one.
Right. And for most of us, when that thought arises, we immediately believe it. We fuse with it completely. We assume it is an objective statement of reality that our brain has just kindly delivered to us.
We just take it as absolute truth. We figure, well, my brain thought it and it feels terrible, so it must be a cold, hard fact.
But Tully points out that this is merely a passing thought produced by that thinking machine. It is a mental event, much like a physical reflex, like a knee jerk.
Okay.
It is not an objective truth about your worth or your reality. The breakthrough, the actual practice of being in the now happens when you learn to become the observer of these thoughts without identifying with them.
So what did it actually look like in practice? Like, how do I observe the thought without just getting completely sucked into the misery of it?
It happens in micro steps. When the thought, I am not successful, pops up, instead of spiraling into a panic about your career, you just pause. You take a breath, and you mentally note, oh, my mind is producing a thought about success right now.
You just label it.
Yes. You watch the thought pass through your awareness like a cloud passing through the sky without saying, I am the cloud. You create this tiny sliver of distance between the awareness that is you and the thought that your brain is spitting out.
It's almost like sitting in a movie theater and suddenly remembering you are just watching light on a screen rather than being totally lost in the terrifying plot of the movie.
That is a perfect analogy.
Well, in creating that distance brings us to something that I think requires a bit of a trigger warning because it hits so close to home for so many people. It's this concept of the pain body.
What's fascinating here is how the concept of the pain body explains so many of our seemingly irrational, highly explosive reactions in daily life.
Yeah.
The pain body, according to the source material, is essentially the accumulated emotional pain from your past that continues to live inside you. It's this dormant reservoir of old hurts, unresolved anger, and past sadness. It's an energy field of negative emotion.
I want to share a scenario from the text that I think everyone listening will find painfully relatable. Imagine you are at work and you receive a very slight, maybe even well-intentioned email from a coworker,
We all get those.
right? Something like just following up on this. Objectively, it's a tiny, harmless comment. But you read it and suddenly your chest tightens, your face gets hot, and you react with intense, completely disproportionate anger.
Oh, yeah.
You literally draft a furious 5-paragraph reply in your head. Why does a tiny email cause a nuclear reaction?
We have all been there. And the text explains the why behind this phenomenon perfectly. That tiny passive-aggressive email didn't actually cause that massive physiological reaction. The email merely triggered your dormant pain body.
It woke it up.
Exactly. The old unresolved pain, maybe from a past boss who micromanaged you or a childhood where you felt unheard, it just woke up. The pain body feeds on negative energy, so it used this current minor situation as an excuse to flare up and completely consume your thoughts.
So how do we deal with this invisible monster living inside our nervous system? Because telling myself, hey, don't be mad, has literally never worked in the history of the world.
And it won't work because resistance just feeds the pain body more energy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the solution again is conscious awareness. When you can observe those heavy emotions consciously as they are rising up, they begin to lose their power. In the moment your chest tightens over that email, you catch it. You observe the physical sensation and you realize this isn't really about the email. This is my pain body waking up. This is old pain.
That awareness is what strips the emotion of its control over your behavior. You don't have to suppress the anger, but you also don't have to let it dictate your actions.
Right.
You stop letting the unresolved past basically hijack your present reactions.
And this raises a very profound philosophical question for the listener. If you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotional pain body, then what is left? Who are you? And this pivots us directly into Tolle's concept of the ego. Now, normally when we use the word ego in everyday conversation, we just mean someone who is arrogant or full of themselves.
Yeah, like, oh, that guy has a huge ego.
Exactly. But in this context, the ego means something much deeper. It is the false identity that our minds create for us to survive and navigate the social world.
The ego is basically an avatar we build out of external markers, and then we convince ourselves that the avatar is who we truly are.
Yeah.
The text actually provides a very clear list of specific examples of what constitutes this ego identity.
Yeah, what's on the list?
It includes your job title, the amount of money in your bank account, your social status, your past achievements, your family role, and perhaps most dangerously, your opinions.
Your opinions being part of your ego is a massive realization.
It really is.
We attach our identity to our political beliefs, our aesthetic tastes, our views on how society should run. But the source material makes a critical point about the danger of building your identity out of these external fragile things. When you identify entirely with these markers, you live in a state of constant underlying fear because external things can always be threatened or taken away.
That is the ultimate trap of the ego. Because if your entire identity is built on your job title and someone criticizes your work, your ego doesn't just process it as helpful feedback on a spreadsheet.
No, not all the
It feels literally attacked. It triggers a fight-or-flight survival response because it feels like a threat to your very existence.
Or consider opinions. If your core identity is tied to a specific opinion and someone online strongly disagrees with you, you don't just think, oh, a differing perspective.
Right, you feel like you are being personally destroyed. Your heart rate spikes, your adrenaline surges, all because of words on a screen.
Exactly. Realizing that your true self, the observer behind the thoughts, is vastly deeper and completely untouched by these temporary labels is the absolute key to freedom.
It is so incredibly liberating to realize you don't have to defend your job title or your status with your life. But here's where we hit another point of friction in the review.
Okay.
Once you start detaching from the ego and recognizing the pain body, you still have to actually live in the messy, complicated physical world. And the text heavily relies on the concept of acceptance and surrender to navigate that world.
Yes.
And I really want to play devil's advocate here because when I hear surrender, I think of apathy. If I just, everything in the present moment, isn't that just giving up? What about profound injustice or terrible life situations? Am I supposed to just accept a toxic workplace or systemic hardship?
That is the single most common and arguably the most dangerous misconception about mindfulness. Surrendering to the now absolutely does not mean you lose your agency or become a passive doormat to injustice.
Okay, so what does it mean?
Tolle makes a vital distinction between inner acceptance and outer action. Surrender means you stop internally fighting the reality of what is currently happening. It means dropping the inner narrative of this shouldn't be happening to me.
The source gives a brilliant, highly relatable analogy to explain this, which is being stuck in terrible traffic.
Oh, the best example.
Right. Let's say you were completely gridlocked on the highway and you were definitely going to be late for an important meeting.
Yeah.
If you sit there gripping the steering wheel, screaming at the windshield, and letting your blood pressure skyrocket, that is useless suffering.
Yeah.
You aren't making the cars in front of you move any faster. You are just poisoning your own present moment.
Precisely. The mindful approach, the path of inner acceptance, is to accept the reality of the situation first without the dramatic mental commentary. You simply acknowledge, I am in traffic, the cars are not moving, this is what is happening right now.
You drop the resistance.
Yes. Once you accept reality internally, then you can act consciously in the outer world.
So instead of boiling with rage and exhausting yourself, you stay calm. You accept the delay, and then you make a conscious choice. You call your boss to say you'll be late, and then since you are stuck anyway, you put on some music. Or, perfectly enough, you put on an audiobook.
Which serves as an excellent bridge to discuss the actual medium of this message. Because this deep dive is based on a review that specifically analyzes the experience of listening to the power of now in its audiobook format.
Right.
The runtime is roughly 7 to 8 hours, depending on the edition. And crucially, Eckhart Tolle narrators the book himself.
And according to the review, the tone and vibe of his narration are a massive, integral part of the experience. It doesn't feel like a typical nonfiction book where someone is just reading information at you at a brisk pace.
The delivery is highly specific and intentional. Tolle's voice is described as remarkably slow, calm, reflective, and almost hypnotic.
Hypnotic.
Listening to it feels less like consuming data and much more like attending an intimate spiritual lecture or participating in a prolonged guided meditation session.
The review points out that because of this unique delivery, the audiobook format actually helps you practice the very presence he is preaching about. While listeners actively report that the cadence of his voice reduces their anxiety in real time while they listen. It improves their mindfulness, and surprisingly high number of people even use it to help with sleep or to ground themselves before a meditation practice. It basically forces you to slow down your own thinking machine just to match his pace.
That makes sense. It creates a deeply resonant atmosphere. The authentic, unhurried tone of the author narrating his own profound realizations adds a layer of emotional depth and credibility that you simply might not get from speeding through the physical text on a page.
Okay, so the philosophy is deep and the audio experience is meditative. But we need to do a balanced breakdown here. We want to weigh the impact and figure out, is this material actually going to be useful for you?
Right, let's get into the ratings.
The source review gives the audiobook an overall rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is incredibly high. Let's look at the strengths first. On the positive side, reviewers consistently praise the deep psychological insight. It doesn't just tell you to be happy, it mechanically explains why humans suffer mentally and emotionally.
Another major strength highlighted is that this practical spiritual wisdom is completely untethered from any specific religion.
Which is nice.
It is. It draws parallels to Buddhism, Christianity, and other traditions, but it doesn't ask you to believe in any particular dogma. It's universally applicable to anyone interested in the mechanics of their own mind, and as we mentioned, it provides genuine reported stress relief for those who put the concepts into practice.
But a 4.5 rating means it is not flawless.
Yeah.
There's some very valid criticisms in the review that we want to lay out to keep you fully informed before you commit 8 hours of your life to this.
Yeah. The review notes a few significant stumbling blocks. First, the concepts repeat frequently. Over the course of 7 to 8 hours, Tolle approaches the same core idea of the news, now from many different angles.
Right.
While this is intentional to break down the ego's resistance, some listeners find it highly redundant. Second, the philosophy can be incredibly abstract or even esoteric, especially for beginners who aren't used to analyzing their own consciousness.
And finally, that very meditative, calm pacing we just praised. It is notoriously slow. If you are the kind of listener who consumes content on 1.5x or 2x speed to maximize your information intake, the pacing of this audiobook might actually drive you a little crazy.
It demands patience.
It really does. So let's talk about listener compatibility. Based on the source material, who is the ideal audience for this? If you are someone who overthinks constantly, if you feel perpetually stressed or anxious about the future, or if you are actively seeking spiritual growth and a deeper understanding of your own consciousness, this is absolutely essential material.
But there is a crucial caveat here, and the text makes a very pointed effort to clarify who this is not for.
Okay, who's it not for?
If you are coming to this deep dive or this audiobook looking for fast-paced productivity hacks or quick 5-minute action steps to optimize your morning routine so you can crush your quarterly goals.
Oh yeah, this isn't that.
This is going to frustrate you deeply. It is a slow, philosophical unwinding of the ego, not a corporate efficiency manual.
If we look at the real-world impact, though, it's hard to overstate just how massive this book's cultural footprint has been since it was published.
Oh, if we connect this to the bigger picture. The Power of Now didn't just sell millions of copies, it fundamentally shaped modern mindfulness and meditation culture as we know it today.
Wow.
Yeah, it took these very deep, traditionally Eastern-inspired concepts of presence, observer awareness, and ego detachment, and it translated them into a framework that the Western mainstream could easily digest and apply.
The review notes it boasts endorsements from some highly successful people and prominent cultural figures. Perhaps most famously, Oprah Winfrey championed it, heavily recommending it to her audience, which completely skyrocketed its global reach and mainstream acceptance.
Its influence is so pervasive that it's woven into almost any modern discussion you hear about mental presence, corporate wellness programs, or personal spiritual development. It really is a foundational text for the entire modern mindfulness genre.
All right, to wrap up our deep dive today, let's crystallize the core insights from the source material. If you take away nothing else from this conversation, remember this. Try to recognize that your mind is often just a constant, unhelpful thinking machine, endlessly churning out thoughts and anxieties that aren't necessarily true.
Exactly.
Try to step back and be the observer of those thoughts rather than being controlled by them. Detach your core identity from your fragile ego, your job titles, your bank account, your fiercely held opinions, and be aware of your physical pain body so that old, unresolved emotions don't dictate your present reactions.
Beautifully said.
And most importantly, practice inner acceptance and anchor yourself in the present reality, because the past and future are ultimately just illusions.
It really is about fundamentally changing how you experience your own life, moving away from a narrative in your head and stepping into the reality of moment-by-moment existence.
To really cement this lesson, the review highlights two of the most memorable and powerful quotes from the text. The first is, "Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have."
Such a great quote.
And the second famous line is incredibly simple but profound. "Wherever you are, be there totally."
Which raises an important lingering question, and it's something I want to leave everyone listening with today. It's a final thought experiment to ponder on your own building directly on what we've discussed about the ego and the observer.
Okay, let's hear it.
If your job title, your social status, your deepest past regrets, and all your future anxieties are ultimately just illusions created by the ego, when you strip all of that mental noise away right now in this exact second, who is the you that is left listening to this sentence?
Oh, that is a wild, slightly dizzying thing to think about. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some amazing new tools and a fresh perspective for navigating that nonstop thinking machine in your head. Until next time, stay present and stay curious.